Testing. Testing, testing.
Glass bullet.
Hi-yo! That's supposed to be the sound of a lot of butterfly wings flapping. Welcome to the Butterfly Haus podcast. I am Osaze Karaja. I make music under the title Butterfly Haus. 2 words, Haus. Keeping it posh, keeping it fancy, keeping it compelling, keeping it intriguing. And I figured, I'd make a podcast with the same name just to keep the branding streamlined. And I thought of this earlier. Here's the perfect visual for what Butterfly Haus represents, podcast-wise and musically, but focus mostly on the podcast thing, because that's how, we're here right now doing podcast things. Think of, going into a house, right? You walk into a house, and it's just full of butterflies, all types of colors, all types of shapes, flying in different directions, all with their own respective struggles and pasts out of the chrysalis. And that's kind of how my brain works. So there's just a lot of colors, a lot of things flying around. They're all over the place. They all come from different places. And I'm basically housing all of that for you here in a podcast. And I do that sonically with music. So I hope that this goes on for a bit, because I'd love to have you guys for a while. Stick around, grab a seat. You know what I mean? I don't know where any of this is going to go. You're basically going to be sitting there listening to the ramblings of a bipolar artist man who is just trying to figure it all out, man. And I don't know, I had a sudden urge to start podcasting. I know it's very, very in vogue for the 21st century. So I guess maybe I'm late to the party. I don't know. But I'm happy I'm here. I'm happy that my 1 to 3 listeners is tuning in. Hopefully we continue to grow it. And I'll just be kind of checking in every week. Don't hold me to that, because I might get fickle and only do once every 2 weeks. Or I'll just fucking quit. I don't know. But I don't want to quit. I want to learn consistency, people. I want to learn discipline. I want to learn regimented approaches to life. So this is another arena where I can work on being regimented and intentional. Right? As I was trying to figure out a name for this podcast, a couple of them came to mind, and I realized, like whenever you go to put out an album, or if you wanted to think of a musician name, typically you run your fucking Googles to make sure that no one else has it, right? So I did that when I was trying to come up with the name for the podcast. And I'll tell you, I feel like everyone and their mom has a podcast, because names I kept thinking up were just taken. And I was so fucking pissed about it. The best one I had, my favorite one, the one that I initially was going to call this, it was going to be called The Art of Dying. It's actually a George Harrison song called Art of Dying. And there's just something very poetic about that title. It also just speaks to me where I'm at in life as someone, who has survived, many bouts with suicidal thought. Someone who's currently battling cancer. So, all this kind of shit kind of puts you in a space, the frame of mind of thinking about, your mortality and the time that we have here, how long you have. And essentially, think of it like if dying is the finale of the movie, right? You only really appreciate the finale of the movie if the rest of the movie's runtime was good, right? Like if the rest of it was compelling and entertaining and thought-provoking and emotional and all that good stuff that we love. So I wanted to kind of just gear the podcast towards, food for thought as we're all down here scrambling, trying to figure out how to do this whole life thing, because it gets pretty tricky. Gets pretty tricky. Gets pretty hairy. Gets pretty confusing. But I feel like that's kind of what unites us. Yeah, like that's the thing. We're all trying to figure it out. Oh yeah. And again, there's gonna be tangents. I have no script. I have no guest. Hopefully I'll get some guests though. That'd be cool. Have some people come in here and we kind of chop it up. I'd like that. But anywho, The Art of Dying. But I looked it up. Taken. Or no, The Art of Dying Well was taken. And I'm like, well, I mean, that's pretty much close to the thing I was going to do. So fuck that. And then I thought of one of my favorite moments in one of my favorite movies, The Departed, right? Where fucking Frank Costello comes out the back and there's a guy sitting at the bar and he's like, who let this IRA motherfucker in my bar? And there's an awkward pause. And then he's like, nah, I'm just kidding. How's your mother? And then the guy says, she's on her way out. And then Frank just goes, we all are, act accordingly. So I was going to call it the Act Accordingly podcast. And then I'd have that as like the little cute intro for every time I do it. But then I fucking looked that up. And also, yeah, the Act Accordingly podcast is a thing. And then I thought back to this old Instagram series I had called Philosophical, because my name is Osaze, Saz and Philosophical, blah, blah, blah. A buddy of mine told me it was whack. I liked it. I thought it was snappy. But I was also just like, I don't want to confuse the people because my old music name was Saze. So I'm like, you know what? I'll keep it fucking simple. I'll just call it The Butterfly House. Key difference is the word "the" is in front of Butterfly House for the podcast. Music is just Butterfly House. Was that entertaining? Was it entertaining hearing how I came up with this? All right. Episode 1. We are here. And I've got some things I want to address. First, I'm recording this on a pretty somber day. I don't know all the details as of now, but according to the news, there has been yet another mass shooting. Someone ran up into a elementary school, rang off some shots. I believe 14 people passed away. So I want to just take a quick moment of silence for those people and their families. Thank you. And I guess we can kind of segue into a topic I've been thinking about a lot. Honestly, maybe for the past 3 years, I've been thinking a lot about the downfall of humanity. Because, all right, what's the phrase? What goes up must come down, right? And I've been thinking about how long human beings have been here, I mean, even if you just take the last 2,000 years, right? We've been around for a while. It's kind of like, it's kind of like The Walking Dead, in my opinion. Like, it's just been going on a little too long. And like the whole time you're just kind of like, I don't see an end in sight, but I know it has to end. But while I'm waiting for it to end, each season just keeps getting worse and worse and more ridiculous. So I'm left wondering, what the fuck? Like, I feel like the writing on the wall kind of signals that humanity's kind of entering its series finale. Now granted, people, I want to be optimistic. I'm gonna promote optimism. We are optimistic. Humanity will continue onward and upward and outward and continue to expand and innovate, and we will heal our world. Now that I've said that, the question is, how much of that do I believe? Optimism is funny, man. sometimes optimism just straight up feels like lying to yourself. Maybe that's what it's built around. Just kind of lying to yourself, faking it till you make it, you know. But really, yeah, like when I look at the writing on the wall of, I don't know, minimal to, some would argue, no progress in terms of racial equality and gender equality. I mean, bullying's on the rise. You got suicide ages getting younger and younger. I believe the internet is probably the greatest double-edged sword we have ever created. Because yes, it is a tool that gives us this means to, you know, connect with each other and check on all those old people from high school and middle school and all that type of shit and send memes and have fun with it. It's nice. But also at the same time, it's like, it's given us more ways to polarize ourselves. It's given us more ways to argue. It's given us more ways to lob hatred. It's also just given us more ways, I think, to experience trauma. I remember in 2020, it was interesting when, you know, you had, I'm not going to call it a resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement. I'm just going to call it, I'm going to say it came back in vogue. I feel like people cared about it a little bit more. And I remember, you know, you'd be able to go on Twitter, and you could literally go on Twitter and see video footage of, you know, another unarmed black person getting a couple shots let off in their back. Just fucking insane. Like, I think these are stories that you used to be able to hear about or you'd read about them, but to actually see them being shared over and over again on your feed. On your feed. And I can't help but think about that in and of itself as a double-edged sword. The fact that, yes, people are getting informed. People that aren't, I mean, for whatever reason, if you're not hip to the fact that police brutality is going on, I don't know where the fuck you've been. But now, yes, more people who may have not been aware of the extent of all this shit, now they see it. You know, it's right there on their feed. But at the same time, you know, you're still witnessing a murder. Like, it's still hefty shit. And I just can't help but wonder if that's healthy, you know? Or let's take it even off of that, just social media in general. I think it just helps people remain distracted. I think there's this thing called, if you've ever heard of a dopamine fast, right? Where basically the theory behind it is that because we have such infinite content, word to Arcade Fire, infinite content constantly coming into our fucking heads and our eyes and all that shit, basically it takes more for us to get off, you know, metaphorically speaking. Like, you know, like people who watch porn, and you know you watch a lot of porn and you spend all that time watching the porn, and you know the rabbit hole opens up where you start getting into weirder and weirder shit, and you know that kind of leads to a point where when you actually have that lovely young lady over your house, your dick doesn't get up because it just a real live woman doesn't do it for you anymore, because you're used to watching an 8-guy gangbang with some random Filipino chick. So you're in this whole other state of what will give you a boost. So where we're at with infinite content, constantly streaming things, constantly tweeting, Instagramming, TikToking, all this shit, I think it kind of just makes a lot of, I don't know, more basic pleasures seem very, very obsolete. You know, if you spend 2 hours just scrolling the gram, scrolling TikTok, well, going for a walk might not really hit the same for you, because you require memes to care about life. But of course, that's a little extreme. Speaking of porn, yeah, fucking porn, I would say, is also very, very destructive. Now, I know there's like some people were telling me about ethical porn, and I don't quite know what that means. Like, I can't wrap my mind around that. I feel like regardless of the porn, you're still watching two people bang. So I still feel like that does something to one's own appreciation of the sanctity of sexuality and intimacy. Unless some people use porn like an avatar. I know I've thought of that. I think I've used porn kind of as an avatar, you know? Like, you go on there, you search the thing, and you stumble upon some dude with like a dick that's 3 times your size getting serviced by some really, really cartoonishly slutty woman. And you're like, yeah, I'm that guy today. I'm plugged into the Matrix. I'm that guy for the next 2 minutes. And I think it just kind of takes you out from reality. You know, basically, we've just found more and more ways to disconnect with reality. Meanwhile, I'm bringing it back around to the collapse of humanity thing. Meanwhile, we're actually destroying real reality. Like, the environment is fucked. And I feel like this topic comes up a lot, that the environment is kind of fucked. But I just feel like people don't really care as much. I feel like people are kind of, I'm going to say, in this all hope is lost apathetic place with it, where it's just like, well, dude, there's nothing that can be done about it. So just, keep rolling till the wheels fall off. And I get that, because it is pretty shitty. I understand. But I still feel like there's ways to maybe extend Earth's lifespan, even just a smidge, But that's where we get into the whole discussion about corruption, right? Ah, yes, corruption. It's typically at the heart of all things awful with public policy. So essentially, we could probably do a lot about climate change, but some people would have their pockets hurt if we did move to cleaner ways of powering things. And I mean, it's kind of like a sad act of, let's call it human physics. Money tends to run everything. It's the thing that wakes people up every day. Think about you. You woke up this Monday. Why? Because you had to go to work. Why? Because you had to make money. Why? Because you had to sustain your existence. But there's the next level of beyond just sustaining your existence. It's, man, I want to live, bro. It's not enough that I can simply just afford a comfortable life. No, my life has to be extravagant. And that's how a lot of these oil tycoons and people that are pumping corporate money into politics, that's how they think. It's like, well, yeah, I could save the earth, but that's going to affect the likelihood of me getting a new super yacht. So I don't really give a fuck. And then combined with the fact that a lot of these dudes is old, bro. Like, a lot of our politicians are old. A lot of people at the heads of these corporations are old. So there's probably an element of selfishness involved in it, where you're just like, well, I mean, yeah, the earth is kind of shitty, but dude, I'm 78. I don't give a fuck. I'm about to be out anyway. So, I mean, if I'm going to die soon regardless, then I'm going to stack my cheese, buy tons of diamonds, and just be a dickbag. And do you blame them? Yes, we can blame them. But I want this podcast to also have us look at multiple angles of things. So I feel like we can understand the appeal of being selfish, right? Because sometimes when you look at Earth and the people on Earth, it can kind of feel like a group project. Like, we're all doing a group project, right? And it's very, very hard for us all to coordinate our schedules and all that shit to actually buckle down and do the group project for this class. So I think selfish people are just like, well, fuck that. I don't want, like, why bother trying to work in the confines of other people when there's too many clashing opinions, too many different motives, too many everything from different people's walks of life. So the appeal then becomes to just do your own thing. But of course, obviously, a lot of times selfishness impacts other people. That's the philosophical question. Can selfishness genuinely exist in a vacuum? So if you were to only live for yourself, would it end up not impacting those around you? Or not even those like in your direct vicinity? I mean, how deep does the rabbit hole go? You know? I think about that shit even when I would spit out gum on the sidewalk. I know, bad boy. But I would spit out some gum on the sidewalk, and, you know, someone might end up stepping on that gum, or wind might carry it off to a faraway land, and then, I don't know, a rabbit eats it and he dies. And then I now, because of my own selfish act, have now killed a bunny. You know? But I get it. It can be... Ooh, sorry about that. I had some technical difficulties. Yeah. Existence can be hard. Anyway, the downfall of humanity. There's that. What was it? Oh yeah, climate change. We're not making headway with the whole racial thing. I mean, you take one step on Twitter, and it feels like we're not really making the kind of profound progress that we need to heal society. You know, like, yeah, it's not the 50s where you could lynch me in a public square and it's basically like going to see the fireworks on the 4th of July. It's different. Like that's not acceptable. And, you know, you don't have scientists conducting all these studies about, you know, the inefficiency of the Negro mind. Like we have gone past certain more overt styles of racial division and racial violence, but let's not act like it's not still out there in all types of ways. And even beyond the obvious ones like police brutality, even if you just go on Twitter, you got, you know, black men and black women constantly, and I know I keep referencing Twitter, but this is kind of where I can see a window into, have I mentioned Twitter a lot? I don't know. But anyway, Twitter, social media period, is kind of the window into seeing how the rest of the world is operating outside of just me. So I'm typically always seeing arguments between, you know, black men and black women about how either side doesn't understand either side. So that's division within ourselves, right? And then I saw something the other day. LeBron James' son went to prom with a blonde white girl. And people are losing their fucking mind. So yeah, like interracial dating is still super, super hot button issue. At any given moment, you have someone saying something wild and racist or problematic, or a new discovery about someone who did blackface, or just it's constant. And you're at this point where you're wondering what would solve this, you know? And I used to teach kids, right? I taught kiddos for a good 9-10 years. And part of what was cool about teaching them is that obviously, you know, kids are stupid. Nah, I'm just kidding. Kids are great. But their framework is a lot less complex than ours. So when they look at physical traits such as the color of your skin or the texture of your hair, they only see it as a physical trait, which is beautiful. It's beautifully simplistic compared to us, where we have all this other weight that's lobbed on it. And yeah, I'm going to blame white supremacy because that's what did it. Like that's the architect of this really awful building that we're living in. And we're all just kind of left dealing with the shockwaves of it. And I'm not really sure how. Oh, by the way, this podcast is going to have few solutions. There's a lot that I don't know. And again, what's the premise here? We're all just down here trying to figure it out, man. So yeah, I don't actually know what would fix the racial divide. It just kind of feels like one of those situations where we need another arc. We need another biblical flood to kind of just start over, because it feels like racism is kind of like genetics. It just gets passed down from generation to generation. When your grandpa Jethro tells, young Jimmy in their Alabama whatever about how, he hates the Negroes. Well, young Jimmy as a 2-year-old, he's going to hear that. And now that's going to be kind of in his mental framework. And then he grows up, and then the media is going to show him a bunch of other things that kind of will substantiate the awful things that his Uncle Jethro, I said Jethro, right? Uncle Jethro told him. And then, that gets passed down to more people. It's fucked. Or we need, what we fucking need? We need those memory eraser things that they had in the Men in Black. The little pew, little light thing that you wear the sunglasses for. Maybe some people just need their memories erased, Gender. Yeah, that's another thing, dude. Like we're constantly fighting about that stuff. I don't know, dude. This is why sometimes, and again, I keep my ear to the street. I keep my eye to the feed. So I do know generally what's going on. But a lot of times it feels just safer to just focus on making music, man. Like, there's one of my favorite Seinfeld moments. Elaine and David Puddy, they're on a plane coming back from some European trip, and then they're next to some dude who they refer to in the episode as vegetable lasagna. And as they're on the plane arguing with each other, at some point Elaine is just like, you know it, I know it, vegetable lasagna knows it. And then he's just like, please, I don't want to get involved. I get it. I get why you don't want to get involved, because it's fucking heavy. Like, I have a lot of empathy for leaders of nations who have to go to sleep at night knowing that they're making decisions about, possibly bombing people, and all the blood that you have on your hands with that kind of shit. My activist buddies, I send my heart out to you. Props to you for staying as involved as you are. But I also hope that you're getting fucking therapy, man. Like, I think some people, they do put a lot of stock into trying to assess and heal the ills of the world on a very macro level. And, I'm not trying to say that their efforts are futile. I'm glad that people are out there fighting. I just hope that, motherfuckers are also taking care of themselves, because, activism, it's basically a trauma field. So I hope motherfuckers is getting therapy, man. But that's why, again, I have a lot going on in my life. I got fucking cancer. I have bipolar disorder. So me trying to wrap my mind around that shit, yeah, I can't always take on all of the ills of the world via the news cycle. And that's why it becomes, we all need a sanctuary. Maybe that's how we can end this. How much time I have? Okay. I did a fucking half hour. I love it. Maybe this will be like a half hour to 45. But anyway, maybe the conclusion of this podcast can just be, we all need a sanctuary. We all need a safe haven where we go and we just kind of exist there in a peace, in a peaceful realm of solitude, man. Like, when I'm looking around and it looks like the world is fucking burning down, that's where I just put my head down and think of a chord progression and some drums, or grab the guitar or something, and just kind of do it that way, like having a safe space, because you need it to maintain, existence is hard. And unless you're planning on killing yourself, well, this is a gig that runs for quite a while. It's basically we're all doing a really fucked Vegas residency. You know, it's a very shitty contract, but hey, we got to show up every night because we signed the contract upon getting our umbilical cord. Snip, snip, snap. So we're here. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the first episode of the Butterfly House. I feel like it was very, very heavy. And I apologize. I mean, heavy things will come up because I like to discuss whatever's on my mind, freeform. But I also do have a dark sense of humor and I would say a sense of levity and bliss and analysis that might make the weightiness of certain things I bring up, might make them a little more palatable, you know, might add a little sugar to the medicine, so to speak. But yeah, I'll be checking in. I wanted to get to it today, but I don't have time. I wanted to discuss 2 new albums that came out that I'm really, really into. Obviously, I have to talk about music on this thing. I'm a musician, so I have to talk about music. It has to happen like it has to happen. But I wanted to talk about the Kendrick album and the Florence and the Machine album. But I mean, people are still digesting both of those albums. Definitely the Kendrick album, I'm sure. So I'll talk about that next week. How about that? Deal? I'm figuring out what days to drop these. I'm thinking Monday. Or maybe hump day. Maybe it could be a Wednesday thing. Would you guys like a Wednesday pick-me-up? Huh? If there was a day that started with B, I would have to drop in on that day. Because of the B in the Butterfly House, you know. But yeah, we'll check in. So yeah, we're gonna be talking music, global things, relationship stuff. You know, we gonna go all over the map. I'm getting very excited thinking about where this will go. In terms of what I'm going to talk about. I don't think it's going to blow up or anything. But that's not why we do things. We don't do things because we want them to blow up. We do things because they matter to us. And they mean things to us. And hopefully, in that process, they end up reaching those few or many people that it means something to them too. So, thank you for hanging out in my Butterfly House. And I will you'll hear me next week. Good luck.